to rappers and their chains, it's a city that's had an enormous influence on hip-hop's evolution. From early pioneers like the Ghetto Boys, DJ Screw, to the guys that brought the unique Houston sound all the way to the national mainstream in the mid-2000s. However, these days that influence is often overlooked, as other sounds like trap and drill have taken over the airways. But Houston's influence is still there for those who know what they're looking for. One of the more obvious examples being the stuff that you can seemingly find in every modern rapper's double cup, while another example being one of the biggest moguls the rap game has ever seen, who's helped launch the careers of some of the biggest.
If you don't know, like, the whole double cup and the sip and drink, all that originated in Houston with DJ Screw and, you know, the SUC back in the day. Like, we the originators of that, so that's what he mean.
Of today, while also influencing the industry from behind the scenes with an iron fist. But Houston itself has gone through some major changes, as the city that was once relatively safe compared to many other major cities where large street gangs had begun to form years earlier has turned itself into one of America's gang capitals, which has also influenced the music scene. One of the main faces of the Houston rap scene being the loud and flamboyant Sauce Walka, whose music carries the legacy of Houston's old sound rooted in syrup, slabs, and screw tapes, while also showcasing the raw, aggressive energy of a new generation shaped by gangs, street politics, and social media warfare. Unfortunately, Sauce Walka's life and career would almost come to an end when he was shot in the leg during a recent targeted attack in Memphis.
Rapper Sauce Walka was shot in the leg in Memphis just this past Saturday. Another man was shot and did not survive. Tonight, Memphis police say they've identified 21-year-old Jaden Dandridge as the shooting suspect. A warrant has been issued for Dandridge's arrest.
While another rapper, Say So P, who was part of Sauce Walka's TSF record label, was also killed at the scene. This being yet another dark reminder of how increasingly blurred the lines have become between music and the streets in modern day rap. So in this video, we're going deep into the H-Town underground, from the city's gang and music scenes to the major players in the streets, studios, and boardrooms.
Damn, niggas be forgetting about Mike Jones. I ain't gonna lie. I forgot. Like, Mike Jones will never pop out and do a show and then, like, you know.
If you want to watch my videos uncut and extended, go to patreon.com/traplaw. So go search 2017, a sunny Tuesday afternoon in southeast Houston, and Sam Johnson, a 53-year-old handyman, is just trying to make an honest living by fixing up a house on London Street, having no idea that in less than 10 minutes, he'll be caught in the crossfire of a war that's been raging on for years. A stolen blue Mazda speeds down the block, and before it even comes to a stop, 4 gunmen inside begin firing. The car crashes into a ditch, but the shooters don't miss a beat. They jump out, still shooting, before carjacking a woman, holding her baby, and making a getaway. When the smoke clears, Sam Johnson is dead, an innocent man killed in the gang war he had nothing to do with. A conflict between 2 Houston gangs that had already claimed over 50 lives since 2011. Sam Johnson's murder.
Alright, see, I already see where he going with this. This is the south side of Houston. This is the 3 hoods on the south side. You know, they be friends with each other, beefing with each other 1 minute. It's all the same.
About to expose something that would shock even federal investigators, because by 2017, Houston had become home to over 20,000 gang members and 400 different gangs. But to understand how Houston became a battleground where innocent handymen get caught in the crossfire, we need to go back to the beginning. Now, most people think Houston's gang problem started in the 90s with the explosion of crack cocaine, and in some ways that is true, because while some other major cities had been dealing with large street gangs since the 60s, 70s, or even earlier, in Houston, such gangs were still largely non-existent. However, the seeds of Houston's gang empire were already planted in the 70s and early 80s. At the time, Houston's black communities were dealing with the same problems plaguing urban America everywhere: poverty, segregation, and a lack of opportunities that pushed young men towards the streets. As a result, small neighborhood-based crews would begin forming in neighborhoods like the 3rd Ward and 5th Ward. They were nothing like the organized gangs we know today, but the foundation was being laid. But while cities like Los Angeles and Chicago had already developed their own gang cultures, Houston was about to become something different, a melting pot where gangs from across America would come in to set up shop. It started with migration throughout the 70s and 80s as people were moving to Houston from cities like Chicago and LA, drawn in by job opportunities and the oil industry. Some of these migrants would also bring with them the colors, codes, and criminal knowledge of some of America's most dangerous gangs. But the streets weren't the only place where Houston's gang future was being written. Inside the Texas prison system, something even more significant was happening. In 1984, the Texas Mexican Mafia would be born behind bars.
The Texas Mexican Mafia is considered a Tier 1 gang threat to our state. They got the highest rating threat to us as any gang member.
The East Los Angeles-based gang with connections to Mexican drug cartels is run like the military, according to the FBI. They have a leader who is in federal prison in Colorado. They have a constitution, and you must kill someone to get in, and you don't get out until you're dead.
And a year later, the Aryan Brotherhood would make their Texas presence known too, while throughout the 80s, a prison gang called Tango Blast was forming as a protection group against the more established gangs like the Texas Syndicate.
It was a gang to help people go home, because the other gang members were recruiting people and letting them go stab somebody.
Yeah.
Catching more life sentence, catching 30, 40 years more, just to, tell them you gotta go stab this dude. You don't even know this dude. They just tell you go stab him.
Yeah.
Texas prison gangs may seem somewhat disconnected from Houston's streets, but here's the thing about Texas. It's got one of the largest prison systems in America, and Houston, being the biggest city in the state, is where a lot of these gang members end up when they get out. By the mid-1980s, there was a perfect storm brewing in Houston, where the small neighborhood crews provided the foundation and the prison gangs provided organizational blueprints, while migrants bought the cultures and criminal enterprises of America's biggest gang capitals. Added Houston's strategic location, perfect for drug trafficking, sitting right between Mexico and the rest of America, and all the ingredients for an explosion were set to take place. But just like in other cities in America, where the gang problem hadn't yet gotten out of control, nobody in Houston seemed to understand just how big that explosion would be. By 1988, Houston had 23 gangs with 333 members, but just a year later, in 1991, that number had exploded to 103 gangs with 1,098 members, a 230% increase in just 3 years.
On Monday night, City Under Siege reporter Sherry Martinez will begin a special report on Houston juveniles who were busted for allegedly selling crack cocaine.
On a Wednesday night, a school night, yet this 15-year-old is being arrested for allegedly selling crack cocaine.
Did he sell to the undercover officer?
Yeah. He's going to be our primary delivery, I believe.
You feel this is wrong to do?
No. Damn, who pops this is? Who uncle somebody this is? They got broke on the news selling crack. It's crazy.
You don't think it's wrong? Why?
Because making money.
3 other juveniles have been arrested for allegedly dealing drugs. 2 of them are brothers.
You said you've seen kids come in with large amounts of cash. What have you seen?
$700, $800, $900, food stamps, the Gucci pants.
This 13-year-old says he's sold.
Bro, it's like food stamps, the Gucci pants. He hating nigga.
Large amounts of cash.
$900
What
in
have
the
you
90s.
$700, $800, $900, food stamps, the Gucci pants.
This 13-year-old says he's sold crack for about a year, making $150 a week.
What do you buy with that money? Clothes and, give money to my mother and stuff.
The Department of Justice took notice, sending investigators to figure out what the hell was happening in Houston. Their assessment was damning. These were young, immature, violent, and loosely organized groups, motivated mainly by the profits of drug trafficking. They would classify Houston's gangs into 4 categories: criminal street gangs, identity gangs, racist gangs, and bizarrely, satanic gangs, though the last one was probably more about the satanic panic hysteria of the 80s rather than actual devil worshipping happening on the block. But what made Houston more different from other gang cities wasn't just the numbers, it was the diversity. Houston was becoming what people would start calling the Third Coast, a gang battleground positioned perfectly between the established gang territories of Los Angeles and Chicago. Like I mentioned earlier, the gangs that set up shop in Houston brought their full organizational structures with them, and what happened next turned the city into a battlefield unlike anywhere else in America. The first wave came from Los Angeles. Blood sets like the 5'9 Bounty Hunters and 5'9 Pyrus established their territories, the Bounty Hunters repping their red and black colors and 5-point stars, while the 5'9 Pyrus rep the color red and 5-point crowns. Their main enemies, the Crips, would also make a lasting impact on Houston, starting with sets like the 5'2 Hoover Gangster Crips, who would establish their presence and bring with them the colors blue and...
See, I already know where he about to go with this. He about to try to link the original Bloods to Sauce Walka, and then he gonna try to link these Hoovers to Maxo Cream. Watch.
The orange was traditional for all Hoover sets, and this was the same organization that would later put a 13-year-old kid named Maxo Cream on in their set, a decision that would have
What I told you, I ain't even seen it, but I caught it.
Changed how Houston gangs operated forever. Meanwhile, Chicago's influence arrived with the Gangster Disciples and Black Disciples, these folk nation organizations bringing their own criminal organizations to Houston's streets. But Houston wasn't content to just host out-of-town gangs, and the city would also birth some significant homegrown gangs, like the Southwest Cholos, who emerged as a powerful Latino gang, while the Fifth Ward Circle represented the neighborhood loyalty that had existed long before any colors or codes arrived. By the 2000s,
I'm from the South Side, so I never heard of the Fifth Ward Circle. That's why we need C-Max here. He the North Side correspondent that we got, but I don't know what C-Max said. C-Max need to be in the chat or something. Like, he probably somewhere laid up knowing him. Hey, man, if y'all see C-Max knowing, man, tell him to tap in. We need to get this money, get back on stream.
Across Houston's sprawling geography, the South Side became home to the Third Ward crews with 103 gang, various Crip and Blood sets.
It's called 103. See, that's what I'm a correct him when he gets some stuff wrong. It's not 103, it's 103.
Everything from Sunnyside to South Park. The suburb of Alief became a stronghold for Latino.
It's Alief, not Alief.
Gangs like the MS-13 and the Southwest Cholos, while the North Side saw Acre Homes, Independent Heights, and Homestead developing their own gang territories, and the East Side became prime real estate for gangs like the 5-2 Hoover Crips around Clinton Park and Federal Road. The 2000s also saw a shift that would change everything about how these organizations operated. Like in many other cities, the predominantly black gangs in Houston began moving away from traditional gang structures, forming what can be better described as neighborhood cliques.
Right now, Houston, you have neighborhoods, you have cliques. You could have a blood and a Crip right next to each other putting in work because it's all about the clique and the hood that you are from.
These cliques brought together members from different gangs, even traditional rivals who were now united by geography rather than colors.
A lot of Bloods, you had a lot of Crips, some Vice Large, GDs, MS-13s.
One person who embodied this new approach was Maxo Cream. After getting put on by the 5-2 Hoover Gangster Crips at just age 13, Maxo would learn the traditional gang system firsthand. But by 2007, when he formed the Cream Click Gang, he took a completely different approach. The Cream Click Gang brought together members from everywhere: Bloods, Crips, Vice Lords, Folk Nation sets, and even homies from the suburbs, showcasing the new Houston model in action. For years, the Cream Click
yeah, I'm glad they said that even niggas from the suburbs was in Cream Click back in the day. Like, they wasn't all just gang banging niggas. They was mostly just niggas who just wanted to dress up, put them damn fitted snapbacks on and shit.
Maxo's rising music career, but in 2016, federal agents would raid their operation, busting them for shipping marijuana from California to Texas through the mail. Authorities seized thousands of pounds of drugs, thousands of pills, and numerous guns.
Tonight, pounds of pot, piles of...
He never went to jail for this.
Guns, body armor, and stacks of cash as well. Now, all of this was seized in a drug sting against a group that calls themselves the Cream Click Gang. And among the 8 people arrested, a Houston rapper.
Investigators say these men were using boxes just like this to ship drugs all the way across the country. What they didn't know is that they were being watched the whole time.
Maxo beat the case, but it showed how even the small neighborhood cliques weren't safe from the law. While Maxo was dealing with federal heat, the clique model would spread all across Houston in ways that were much more violent, as the neighborhood-focused approach that worked for mixed crews like Cream Click was also fueling deadly territorial wars between rival blocks. The 100% Third Ward Gang and their rivals, the Young Scott Block, had been feuding since 2011. Both were what authorities called exclusively local and hometown groups, fighting over specific blocks in the Third Ward and Sunnyside areas. What made this conflict particularly vicious was its personal nature. This wasn't about colors or national gang affiliations, it was beef between neighbors.
And now look, like you said, this beef between neighbors, look how close these two hoods is. Literally, they one across a freeway. All you gotta do is cross the freeway and you in the other hood, another hood. It's just hood beef. Like I say, most of the niggas in YSB used to hang out with niggas in 103, and they all went to school together, grew up together. The whole shit, bro.
Where geographic proximity bred intense hatred, and that hatred was turning Houston into a war zone. By 2017, this single conflict between 2 relatively small gangs had claimed over 50 lives. The violence had become so routine that innocent people like Sam Johnson were getting caught in the crossfire during broad daylight shootings.
Well, during a bond hearing in July for a so-called gang-related murder in Southeast Houston, HPD Police Detective Adam Bach disclosed in court there have been more than 50 deaths since 2011 related to that gang war.
This was just one feud. Federal authorities were tracking much.
Damn, 50 sound like a lot. I know a couple, but damn, 50 is That do sound way more than what I thought it was. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Threats operating all across the entire state. Threats that weren't just running operations from Houston streets, but also from behind the walls of Texas prisons. While everyone was focused on what was happening in the streets, the real power was being consolidated behind bars, where the Texas Department of Criminal Justice houses around 20% of inmates who are identified as gang members. We're talking about one of the largest prison systems in America, and inside these walls, gangs don't just survive, they thrive, recruit, and run criminal empires that stretch far beyond the prison fences. The biggest player in this system is Tango Blast, with an estimated 17,000 to 19,000 members statewide, all while lacking a centralized command structure. Instead, they operate as loosely affiliated crews based on cities: Houston Tango, Dallas Tango, and San Antonio Tango. However, this wasn't always the plan. Tango Blast formed in the 1980s out of pure survival, as Texas prisons were dominated by established gangs like the Texas Syndicate and Mexicanemi, and new inmates needed protection. But what started as a defensive alliance against these older, more organized prison gangs slowly evolved into something much more powerful. The decentralized structure that began as a weakness became Tango Blast's greatest strength, because when law enforcement takes down a traditional gang leader, the whole organization can crumble. But with Tango Blast, there's no head to cut off. Over time, Houston would become the crown jewel in this prison empire. The city's proximity to the Mexican border made it perfect for drug smuggling operations. The massive Harris County jail system became a recruitment hub, and when Tango Blast members got out, many settled.
You do not want to go here.
Massive Harris County jail.
You do not want to go here, man. Full of crackheads, super dirty, man. That ain't where you want to be, man. Stay free.
Became a recruitment hub, and when Tango Blast members got out, many settled in Houston, bringing their prison connections to the streets. But Tango Blast wasn't the only prison gang in Houston using the city as their base. MS-13, originally from El Salvador, would also discover.
And all these niggas right here is in that El Salvador prison right now. I guarantee you. This is that prison. So, okay, this is where he got the picture from, is that El Salvador prison, but
Houston offered everything they needed. The city's large Latino population provided cover for their operations. The port and highway systems made trafficking easy, and the proximity to the border meant easy access to their Central American networks. By 2018, law enforcement classified MS-13 as a Tier 1 gang threat to the entire state of Texas. They were involved in drug smuggling, human trafficking, and and while their numbers in Houston might have been relatively small, their reputation for brutal violence was massive. Other prison gangs like Hermanos de Pistoleros Latinos and various factions were also using the Texas system to recruit and organize. The Harris County Jail became more than just a place to hold suspects, it became a networking hub where gang members from different organizations could meet, plan, and coordinate. The prison-to-street pipeline was creating sophisticated criminal enterprises with international connections, prison-based leaderships, and street operations that could adapt faster than local law enforcement could respond. Gangs offer protection to vulnerable inmates, but that protection comes with a price, a lifelong loyalty that continues long after release. And the gangsters running these operations were about to become some of the most infamous criminals in Houston history. And top of that list is Shaquille O'Neal Richards. Not that Shaq. This is a man who authorities describe as the leader of the 100% 3rd Ward Gang, and someone the department.
Okay, and I just want to say, I went to high school with his sister, and I know his sister very well.
Justice calls one of the worst of the worst. In 2023, federal.
See, this is how small Houston is. Like, if you're really on the south side, everybody know everybody that go to school with somebody, or because it's only like the top main school. So once you in that school system, HISD, you really know everybody. On the north, the north side is a completely different city. Like, so a lot of these stories that he talking about on the south side, I know about. I know these people. I'm really all the way tapped in, but I ain't gonna speak too much on it because, I don't need to get my opinion on everything, but
prosecutors would indict him for
the
2017 murder of Sam Johnson, that innocent handyman from our opening story, right from his prison cell, showing the level of organization and influence that this guy pulls. However, these individual gangsters, as dangerous as they are, represent just the tip of the iceberg, because when we start looking at the body counts from some of Houston's gang wars, the numbers become almost incomprehensible. And in 2021 alone, Houston's murder rate hit 473 homicides, with gangs linked to a substantial portion of these killings. But Houston's story isn't of course just about gangs and violence. As while the streets were being consumed by territorial wars and federal investigations, another side of the city was quietly building something that would change hip-hop forever. Houston is a city with one of the most unique hip-hop cultures in America, known for things like the slowed-down sound of chopped and screwed music.
He invented chopped and screwed music, which was essentially slowing down existing records to a snail's pace, like a syrupy drawl.
And I ain't gotta talk behind your back what I said about you, I said it too.
Which was deeply influenced by the city's thirst for the so-called purple drank, aka lean, a codeine-based cough syrup that's mixed with soda.
New York, them, they drink, you know what I'm saying? West Coast known for their weed, you know what I'm saying? Houston, we known for our thing, you know what I'm saying?
This is lean oil. It's something gonna put you to sleep, man, on your ass if you drink too much.
As well as candy-painted slabs swanging down the boulevard, playing music from the massive custom speakers poking out of a popped-out trunk. However, before Houston became known for its distinctive style, which would eventually even take the city to the very top of the rap game for a period of time in the mid-2000s, it started from very humble beginnings. Just like most other southern cities that took their time to catch up with the rap scenes of cities like New York, the birthplace of hip-hop, and Los Angeles, the birthplace of gangster rap, but when Houston did finally catch on, it came out with force, in many ways pioneering the sound of the South. This is mostly because of one group, the Ghetto Boys, which was originally founded by 3 members, Raheem, Sire Jukebox, and Sir Rap-A-Lot, who's the brother of legendary Houston rap mogul Jay Prince, who we'll discuss more later. However, the group would go through some significant changes during the mid-80s and would eventually be formed by 4 members, DJ Ready Red, Scarface, Willie D, and Bushwick Bill, who would go on to make a national breakthrough with their 1989 album Grip It on that other level. The album would receive significant underground buzz and caught the attention of legendary producer Rick Rubin, who would then take many of the songs from the album, together with some new and old songs, and reissue them through his Deaf American Recordings imprint under the album name The Ghetto Boys in 1990. The album brought the Houston rap scene to major attention nationwide, although the biggest reason for much of its attention was due to the fact that Geffen Records, who were the distributor for Rick Rubin's Deaf American, would back out from their distribution deal with the rap group after hearing the music on the album, deeming the lyrics way too violent and sexually explicit, which would cause headlines all over the country. These kinds of early controversies contributed to Southern rap becoming eventually known by the moniker Dirty South, due to the extreme violence and other explicit themes often present in the music. While the Ghetto Boys are often considered to be the pioneers of so-called horrorcore rap, a subgenre probably best known for the rap group The Insane Clown Posse, aka ICP, whose member Violent J would later tell the Ghetto Boys rapper Willie D how the Ghetto Boys had influenced their sound.
And for anybody who don't know, the wicked horrorcore is rappers rapping about fantasy horror. You know what I mean? Things, anything supernatural or something of fantasy, like a horror movie or something. You know what I mean? Anything along those lines.
Exaggerated violence.
The first horrorcore song I ever heard was
Behind Playing Tricks on
Assassins. Yeah, by the original Ghetto Boys.
Ghetto Boys would then go on to release their official breakthrough album, the 1991 hip-hop classic We Can't Be Stopped, which included the smash hit Mind Playing Tricks on Me. The album continued on the direction that had first placed the group under public scrutiny, the album cover including an image of Bushwick Bill getting pushed on a stretcher by Willie D and Scarface, the image being taken shortly after a real incident.
And I went to middle school with Bushwick Bill's son. That's what I'm saying. That's how small Houston is. Like, every one of these stories, I got probably some type of relationship to, except for anything. This on the north side, but Bushwick Bill's son, we went to McCullough together, middle school. He a rapper now. Y'all tap into his music. I think he called himself Lil Bushwick or something like that. He decent. Like, yeah, y'all tap into bro music.
Bushwick Bill had gotten shot in the eye. However, while the Ghetto Boys were making a way for Houston and the entire South with their controversial gangster rap sound, there was also another subgenre of rap forming in the city, pioneered by a DJ who enjoyed sipping the infamous purple drank while trying to make the music he was playing match the way that he was feeling under the influence. I'm of course talking about DJ Screw, who would invent the so-called chopped and screwed music by slowing down or screwing songs down on tempo and pitch, and then playing the same song on both turntables with a beat difference, allowing him to create a chopping effect where certain parts of the song were repeated. This combination would create an almost psychedelic feel, while transforming existing songs to the point where they sounded completely new. Screw himself was likely influenced by earlier Houston DJs like Daryl Scott and Michael Price, who both experimented in the 80s with slowing down R&B songs to either create smoother transitions between songs or to achieve a more laid-back and mellow vibe. But Screw's unique approach would become a huge phenomenon in the Houston rap scene during the 90s, to the point where people would line up in their cars for blocks just to get their hands on his latest mixtape that he was selling straight out of his house. Screw and his friends would also have a rap group called the Screwed Up Clique, made up of numerous Houston legends like Fat Pat, Big Hawk, Big Mello, Big Mo, Big Pokey, ESG, Lil Flip, Lil Kiki.
Big Pokey, the greatest Houston rapper ever.
and Lil O, Courtney Boys, and many others. They would often meet at Screw's house, where they would all freestyle together while sipping lean and smoking dope.
Haters had no common denominators. It gets greater later if you're straight for perpetrators. I pull more stunts than Evil Knievel, cause I'm on that chase for the root of all evil, trying to thread the needle, making hits like the Beatles. This is just the first chapter of a legendary sequel. Every day, all day, we parlay and sip pints of lean and 2 liters with a face grip. Too clean on the scene, G'd up and down, riding on foes, pimping in the streets of H-Time. I'm on fire, man. They better leave me alone. He on fire. He's on fire. Going down.
DJ Screw was so high.
While Screw himself would unfortunately pass away in the year 2000, reportedly due to an accidental overdose caused by his sipping lean. His influence would continue to shape the direction of the Houston rap scene for years to come, from the slowed down beats to the codeine-soaked cadences of the rappers, and even the way that the songs would often create impeccably catchy choruses by sampling old Houston classics and pitching the voice down in the chopped and screwed spirit of DJ Screw. This unique style would pay off big time during the mid-2000s, when Houston would lead the southern takeover of the rap game during the heyday of the so-called Dirty South era. Several Houston artists would become mainstream household names during this period, including guys like Mike Jones, Paul Wall, Slim Thug, Chamillionaire, Trey the...
What is Mike Jones? We gotta find Mike Jones, man. After this, probably I'm gonna look up what Mike Jones is.
And of course, the Underground Kings, aka UGK, made up of
Bun
Bun B
B
and MC, who were originally from the city of Port Arthur, but would rep Houston heavily during this time. Unfortunately, this golden age of Houston rap would eventually come to an end during the late 2000s and early 2010s, as other sounds and subgenres would take over. However, in recent years, there have been numerous great rappers from the city getting mainstream attention once again, like Megan Thee Stallion, Travis Scott, and Don Toliver, just to name a few. But the noticeable difference is that while these rappers sometimes rep their city in their music, they're all very different stylistically, these styles usually having very little to do with the unique sound that first made Houston popular. However, there are also some artists who merge the old school H-Town flavor with modern energy, most notably Sauce Walka and his TSF label, who have injected a rawer, more gangster edge into Houston's classic formula, turning the city's slow-rolling tradition into something much more volatile, but more about that later. However, there's one element of the Houston rap scene that seemingly never went out of style, but only continued to spread its influence across the country, and I'm of course talking about the infamous Purple Drank. Because while Houston's unique sound may have faded from the charts, the culture of lean quietly crept into hip-hop's bloodstream, sedating a whole generation of rappers, one double cup at a time. Of course, it's nothing new that drugs influence music, but the influence of lean on not just the sound of rap, but the hip-hop culture more broadly has arguably been so expansive for the past 2 decades that it's difficult to quantify. Whether we're talking about the slowdown of tempos and the birth of the so-called mumble rap, or the subsequent SoundCloud era that followed, where the lean's unholy union with another central nervous system depressant, Xanax, allowed the rappers to lose their final brain cells and produce...
Shout out to Soulja Boy, the originator of that Xan with that lean movement. Soulja Boy was the first to do it. I ain't gonna cap. Let nobody cap him down.
Truly magical, or the birth of the more melancholic trap sound that often focused on pain, numbness, and addiction, where lean was almost like a gateway drug to cheaper and more potent opioids. But unfortunately, lean has also caused untold damage in its wake, with the Houston rap scene alone having seen numerous people lose their lives due to overdoses and other health complications caused by this purple devil, including, of course, as already mentioned, DJ Screw, but also screwed up click artist Big Mo, who died due to a heart attack that was likely caused by the combination of obesity and overindulgence in lean. His nickname, after all, being Bar Baby, Bar being the name of an old pharmaceutical company that used to produce some of the bombest syrup of all time. And then there was of course the tragic death of Pimp C, who was found dead inside of a hotel room in LA only a few months after Big Mo's death. His cause of death being ruled a combination of sleep apnea and accidental overdose on lean. In the current era, where rappers are seemingly snorting pills that may or may not be laced with fent right before sliding on their ops, dying off one of the weakest opioids around may seem like an unlikely way to go, but even if you don't end up overdosing on it, you may just end up going bankrupt. Because particularly ever since the authorities started clamping down on prescription codeine cough syrup due to the negative headlines in the mid-2010s, the supply of this purple nectar has become increasingly low, while the prices have become sky high. And while around 2013, a rapper like Chief Keef paid about $600 for a pint of cough syrup, which was already considered to be a very high price, only reserved for one brand, Actavis, the gold standard of lean. Nowadays, the Actavis cough syrup has been discontinued due to bad publicity caused by celebrities abusing it, while other brands of cough syrup that the rappers wouldn't even look at before.
And I'm pretty sure all they did was go out retired activists and just change the name and still make cough syrup so they can just keep
Go for
making the same amount of money from the same shit.
You can even find one, which is why numerous rappers have publicly admitted the ridiculous amounts that they have spent to support this habit, including the Houston rapper Sauce Walka, who actually revealed that he has spent a ridiculous $5 million on lean during his lifetime, starting his decades-long sipathon at just the tender age of 9.
Sip and drink is not like doing no other drug in America. It's the most expensive drug to do as a...
You say you spent $5 million on that shit. That's facts?
Easy.
$5 million?
You talking about easy.
Damn. Easy. You gotta think I've been sipping drink since I was 9 years old. The codeine drink is the first drug I ever did in my life. It's the first drug I ever consumed.
Right.
However, while the real syrup has dried up and the price of a pint is pushing past a mortgage payment, lean still hasn't disappeared. In fact, the culture around it is bigger than ever, and like most things these days, it has gone digital. Now, if you're a Reddit disciple like me, you might have heard about a subreddit called r/drank, which is the successor of an earlier subreddit called r/lean. This is a place where the most dedicated sippers share pictures of their recent scores and obsess over syrup and exotic.
Yeah, bro. And if you sip drink, like, you know, like, it's a community with this shit. Like, they, like, this is, like, gold to them. Like, they want to show this off. Like, if you going to pour up, you ain't just pouring up for you pouring up for yourself, but you going to show
like
it off a little bit. You're going to show if you pouring
One
a
of the more
forward.
interesting phenomena on this subreddit, which perfectly captures the current high status of lean as a rare and luxury item, are posts about so-called dino juice, cough syrup that's so old it's basically prehistoric, with some of the most devoted sipologists collecting these mythical pints like rare antique pieces of art. And if you throw a house party and you're not careful, you might find one of these leanologists in your grandmother's attic, rummaging through the cabinets in the hopes that they might find a 4 of that vintage Ack from 2006.
That's crazy.
It's Bear, older than you. Still purple. Yeah! Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Better not drink that shit.
Legendary, bro.
But while lean may have been the biggest force in influencing the sound of Houston and beyond, there was also another major force working from behind the curtain and shaping the infrastructure and movement behind the music. This was, of course, the biggest rap mogul to come out of H-Town, Jay Prince, who during his long reign on top of Houston's hip-hop hierarchy has become both respected and feared, with an influence that allegedly extends far beyond music, from the streets to politics, earning him a reputation as the official godfather of Houston.
Bro, that shit they be saying about Jay Prince is all fake, bro. Nobody coming to the city and tapping in with Jay Prince no more, bro. Especially since the Takeoff shit happened. Probably now. Maybe back then, like back in the day, yeah. But nowadays, bro, Houston is wide open, bro. Nobody run Houston.
James Prince, better known simply as Jay Prince, was born on the Halloween night of 1964 in Houston, and he grew up in the city's notorious Fifth Ward, also known as the Bloody Nickel due to the area's reputation, as covered in National Geographic's Drugs Incorporated series.
This is a bad neighborhood. They don't call it the Bloody Nick for nothing. There's always something going on, you know. I mean, you know, gunshots, you know, majority gunshots. If you're a newcomer, you know, it's just like having a pet bull, and he wants to be a territorial. So if a newcomer comes in, you got all the pet bulls. Oh, look.
Prince's mother, Sharon Smith, was just a teenager when giving birth, while Jay Prince would later find out that the man he thought was his father, Adam Hackett, was in fact not his blood father. His real father was a man named Ernest Prince, a natural-born leader and a hustler who loved the streets. The apple didn't fall far from the tree, as Jay Prince would later write in his memoir, hustling and being a leader were qualities that he possessed from a very young age. Partly this was likely also the result of growing up in the Clean Manor apartments, located on the infamous Coke Street, where a young Jay Prince learned early that survival meant hustling in whatever way possible. Many of Prince's hustles were legal. He sold eggs, fixed mini bikes, and mowed lawns. But, as he disclosed in his memoir, he would also partake in illegal hustles, and many of these seemingly involved him observing the other kids in his school and neighborhood in order to find the weakest links, or followers as he would call them, so he could take advantage of them. This would include hustles like stealing entire cannabis plants from his friend's backyard, where the friend's father grew them, and then selling them to the local dealers, or urging his kleptomaniac friend to give in to his vices and skip school every day so that he could steal various items for him. Prince seems to look back at these actions somewhat proudly, because in his mind, this was seemingly certainly him perfecting his leadership skills and taking care of the people around him, particularly
Yeah,
his family.
imagine being in
This
middle
attitude,
school having your crash out homie like come with you every day just so he can break into houses and get you some money.
something he had learned to
And you ain't
survive
gotta
the
do
tough
nothing but
streets
just
of
tell
the
him
Fifth
to do
Ward.
it.
But the obvious downside to everyone except his family was that if J. Prince wanted something, he didn't care about the people he had to screw over to make it happen. A defining moment in young Prince's life would come when he was only 11 years old, as his sister Xenia was struck and killed by a train while walking home from school. This tragedy shattered his world, but it also crystallized his purpose. During their final conversation the night before her death, James had promised to buy their mother a house, while Xenia had planned to get her a vacuum cleaner. Now he'd realized he would have to fulfill both promises, which meant he had to hustle harder than he ever had. After high school, Prince tried the 9-to-5 life, but quickly realized he was built for bigger things after he would get laid off from his work at a bank. After this incident, Prince realized that working for someone else just wasn't for him, as he never again wanted to feel like he wasn't in control of his own destiny. And so Prince jumped back into the streets, determined to make it by any means necessary. By the age of 21, he'd already made his first $100,000 in the streets, and the following year he would invest his money also in a legitimate business, buying an abandoned building and transforming it into a car lot. And in order to help his little brother Felton out, who only had two passions, rap and the streets, he would also build a recording studio in his car lot to try and keep his brother out of trouble. By 23, Prince had already kept his childhood promise of buying his mother that house, while also securing a 30-acre ranch for himself. However, Prince knew that the walls were closing in on him. He had made enemies in the streets and was under a constant fear that the feds would take his street operation down. He knew that if he continued on the path he was on, eventually he would be either dead or in jail. And the last nail in the coffin was Prince finding out that his own mother, the mother that he had done everything for, was stealing from him to support her drug addiction that she had hidden from him for years. After this, Prince dropped his mother's last name Smith and took the name of his biological father, Ernest Prince, and so J. Prince was born. He would begin to spend a lot of the time at the studio with his brother, finding it the one place where he could actually relax.
Damn, that's crazy.
Prince
Nigga say your mama stealing from me, drop her last name and take his daddy name. That's crazy.
New York labels dominate
That's
the music
real, though.
industry, monopolizing southern radio stations and clubs, while local talent stayed locked out of their own markets. The hustler in him saw an opportunity that others were missing, a chance to flip the script and build something that could change the entire landscape of southern hip-hop. So Prince decided to make a hard financial decision. He would leave the streets behind him and go fully legal, and in 1987 Prince would found Rap-A-Lot Records, named after his brother Thelton, whose rap name was Sir Rap-A-Lot. To begin the label, he signed his brother and two other artists, Raheem and Sire Jukebox, under the group name Ghetto Boys. As mentioned earlier, the Ghetto Boys lineup would end up going through some major changes during the 80s, which even included Prince kicking his own brother out of the group. But ultimately, the quartet made up of Willie D, Bushwick Bill, DJ Ready Red, and Scarface would make a major breakthrough under the revised name Ghetto Boys, introducing a raw southern sound that would plant seeds for a massive independent movement across the region, while also inspiring.
Yeah, what probably happened was he got the studio for his brother, and then his brother just bringing other rappers through, and other rappers coming through the studio, and he just decided to use them and sign them and make them the artists probably.
The southern moguls like Master P and Birdman to follow Prince's blueprint, but J. Prince's empire wasn't built on music alone. It was constructed on respect and allegedly fear, a system that would later earn him a reputation that's not that different from the reputation infamous Rollin' 60s Crip Big U had garnered on the West Coast. During the 90s, Prince's power in Houston and beyond grew exponentially, and coming into the 2000s, he was not only invested in the rap industry, but also other avenues like boxing, where he would manage such athletes like Floyd.
I got a crazy J. Prince story and Rap-A-Lot story, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to tell it, but one day I'm gonna tell it. Like when we get a bunch of viewers and subscribers and all that, I'm gonna tell the story, man. It's a crazy story, man. Y'all gotta
Weather and Roy Jones Jr.
So if y'all watch this, make sure y'all subscribe, like, comment, and like run it up, cause that story I'm gonna drop gonna be viral.
Could also be seen with some more questionable company, like the New York Kingpin, Kenneth Supreme McGriff, and the Chicago gang leader, Larry Hoover. And soon, one of the first major glimpses into Prince's possible dark side would appear, as national news would report how the DEA had ended an investigation into Prince that had already resulted in 20 convictions of other suspects. After California Congresswoman Maxine Waters had intervened and wrote to the U.S. Attorney General, Janet Reno, claiming that federal agents were targeting Prince due to racial prejudice. The DEA would ultimately continue the investigation, but no charges were ever brought against Prince, and to the contrary, the DEA agent in charge of the investigation would years later be convicted on numerous charges, including stealing money from suspects, falsifying government records, and committing perjury, which raised a lot of serious questions about the investigation against Prince and Rap-A-Lot. However, J. Prince's legal troubles wouldn't end there, and another major incident took place in 2007 when studio owner Ronald Bookman filed a lawsuit against him. Bookman was the owner of Studio 7303, one of Houston's premier recording facilities where A-list artists like 50 Cent, Timberland, and Missy Elliott laid down tracks. The studio was raking in good cash, which made it prime real estate in Prince's home turf. The trouble began when Bookman struck what seemed to be a straightforward deal with Prince. Bun B, one of Rap-A-Lot's biggest stars, would record a feature called Wrong for Dat for Ronnie's artist JV in exchange for a substantially discounted studio time. It was a win-win for both parties. Ronnie got a valuable feature from an established artist, while Prince got cheap access to a high-end studio for Bun B's 2005 album Trill, which would end up going gold. Everything was moving smoothly until Warner Brothers came knocking with a potential deal for Bookman to start his own label. But the moment Warner began showing interest in Bookman's operation, Prince would allegedly backtrack on the Bun B feature deal, seemingly seeing Bookman's plans of starting a competing label in Houston a problem that required dealing with. According to Bookman, Prince managed to derail his deal with Warner, but then in January 2007, Ronnie got word that Prince wanted to meet to make things right. Thinking he was walking into a business negotiation, he rolled up to a gym that was owned by Prince. There, Jay Prince would lead Bookman to a weight room where half a dozen associates were posted up waiting. The conversation got heated real quick, and then Prince allegedly gave his boys the signal. What followed was a vicious beatdown that left Bookman with severe injuries, after which Prince would allegedly ask him if he was done going against him or if he wanted to go to war. Instead, Bookman went to law enforcement, and after the investigation, grand jury upgraded.
Yeah, nigga went to the police immediately. Damn, that is fucked up, though. Jay Prince walked bro into the room, he get jumped by 12 niggas.
Misdemeanor assault to felonious aggravated assault, carrying up to 10 years prison time. For a hot minute, it looked like Jay Prince might actually be facing some real consequences for his actions, but Prince's legal team would pull off some magic tricks. And by July 2008, prosecutors dismissed all charges, claiming Ronnie had credibility issues and had allegedly admitted to various financial crimes during his deposition. Ronnie's attorney called it a blatant attempt to eliminate competition in the Houston rap and hip-hop music business through use of threats, intimidation, and violence. But even with that, the case fell apart. Once again, whatever the truth might have been, Jay Prince walked away unscathed. But in Houston's music scene, it was...
Damn, this nigga got some hell of a lawyers that's been tapped in. He got the best lawyers in Houston, probably. God damn, that nigga got off.
Clear message, there could only be one king, and testing his authority could carry some serious consequences. Meanwhile, by the late 2000s, Jay Prince had also seemingly perfected the checking in culture in Houston, the same system that Big U used to run LA, where any artist bold or dumb enough to enter Houston without showing proper respect would learn the hard way.
Production in the hood. That's how we do it, man. Top flight, baby. Security.
And I just want to say, I wouldn't really know about the checking in shit because I'm from here. And everybody I know who come out here, they check in with me. I mean, just checking in is just like, all right, where I should go? I should go here. Where I need to get this from? Where I need to do that? Like, yeah, that's just checking in, bro. You ain't got to check in and pay a nigga for protection.
This movie set in the hood.
See, but like people like this, they'll say checking in, how you check in, how you pay them to come out here, and then they'll just set you up to get robbed or something. Like, they working with the robbers, like. So it ain't like you paying them for protection. It depends how much you pay them. Maybe they'll keep you cool for a couple months, a couple check-ins. Then eventually they just gonna take you down, bro. So trust your people.
Checking in with GB, getting these movies done. You better know it. Anytime you want to do movies in the hood, just check it in.
Damn, Big U been in jail. He's still fighting that case. It's tough out here. That's why probably Jay Prince cheered down on like the claiming people need to check in, especially after the, like I said, after the takeoff situation.
Make sure it's done, movies, videos. But if you don't check it in, oh well, check your out. We're gonna check you in, all right.
And perhaps no incident better illustrates his reach than his alleged power play with Jay-Z. During a 2020 Drink Champs interview, Prince flexed about how his network would call him the moment Jay-Z's private jet touched down at Houston's airport, claiming he knew exactly when and where the billionaire rapper was moving throughout the city.
They convinced somebody from Priority to go directly to Scarface without communicating with me.
Okay, that doesn't happen.
I mean, that's not the proper way.
Okay, that's not the protocol. Okay.
So the guy, when he got to the airport in Houston, I got calls that he was in the airport, right?
Okay.
I mean, imagine this.
I like that.
I would know shit when you land. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's that deep, right? Yeah.
According to him, Jay-Z checked into a hotel but didn't check in with him, a violation that apparently didn't go unnoticed or unpunished.
A long story short, right? Long story short, he pursued his situation, right? And he was in a Ritz-Carlton, from what I hear. And it didn't go well for him because he didn't do protocol-wise. Wow. Yeah, that's all I want to say about this.
Jay-Z would never respond to these claims
Damn,
publicly.
nigga, Prince
which only
Jay-Z?
validated Prince's version of events in the streets. And if the man who went from crack dealer to billionaire had to deal with Prince's system, then nobody was truly untouchable in H-Town. But by February 2023, Prince's tune had suddenly flipped, and during an episode of $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, he now completely denied the very idea, insisting there was no money in extorting people to check in. On the surface, it looked like Jay Prince was making an innocent pivot, but the timing might be telling a different story, as this interview came just 3 months after Takeoff's tragic death in Houston in November 2022, just when people were pointing fingers directly at Jay Prince and his family for what happened to the Migo rapper on his home turf.
Jay Prince Jr. walked past him and was like, man, don't ask me nothing, no, because he knew what really happened, and he know Takeoff died on they watch, and he died because of some bullshit that y'all thought y'all can just punk this dude.
However, Prince's attempt at rewriting his past would be quickly challenged, because that same month, he would get called out by none other than Charleston White, a controversial media figure and former gang member who wasn't buying Prince's newfound "I'm just a businessman" persona for a second. Now, the beef between Charleston White and Jay Prince had been simmering since late 2020, when White started running his mouth about Prince's son on social media. But on February the 18th, 2023, that long-running beef would explode into something much bigger, when Charleston White's scheduled appearance at a Houston youth mentoring event mysteriously got axed. White initially tried to play it off, posting the event flyer and claiming the internet was lying about any cancellation, but then he would suddenly drop the receipts, showing screenshots that Sonia Parker, the organizer of the Parents Against Predators community event, had indeed been told to cancel his involvement in the event. This would prompt White to post a series of videos ranting about just how deep Prince's alleged tentacles reached into Houston, especially with the boys in blue.
Houston Police Department, y'all some mother... I see why Rap-A-Lot and the rest of these run around this mother... Man, Houston Police, y'all some... The Rap-A-Lot got y'all scared.
Charleston White would also claim that he'd gotten personal phone calls from both Houston's mayor and representatives from the police department's gang unit, allegedly warning him that they didn't want his presence in the city stirring up trouble with Jay Prince.
Now I'm checking in with the police department. Police department told me, hey man, you got a problem with Mr. James Prince. We don't want no problem. The city of the mayor's office called and said, hey, Mr. Charleston, we hear you got a problem with James Prince. Man, we scared of him. I swear to God, y'all, I just got the call from the Houston's mayor's office and the gang unit police department in Houston, Texas. They are scared of Rap-A-Lot.
Now, Charleston White is not necessarily the most trustworthy narrator, but if he was telling the truth, it meant that Jay Prince had the kind of juice that reached from the hoods of Houston all the way to City Hall. But as it turns out, Prince's reach might not stop at Houston's city limits, because in late 2024, allegations surfaced that would suggest his influence extended far beyond Texas, all the way to one of hip-hop's biggest federal cases in recent memory. I'm of course talking about the diddler, P. Diddy. These claims would come from Big Joe, real name Joseph Sherman, a former security guard who'd spent years watching Diddy's back before finding himself in the crosshairs of the bad boy mogul's legal nightmare. Big Joe had gotten dragged into the mess when a woman called Talia Graves had filed a lawsuit accusing both Diddy and Big Joe of assaulting her back in 2001. And as soon as this bombshell dropped, Big Joe would seemingly go into full defense mode, hitting every media outlet that would give him airtime, swearing that he'd never even met this woman and that he was only getting dragged through the mud because he'd once been on Diddy's payroll.
Question her integrity. I'm questioning her claims against me.
Now, after everything that came out, we can't believe that this probably was Diddy's girlfriend at the time, or one of the females he was dealing with, and he let his body go ahead.
I wasn't the head of the security. You got the wrong man. I've never seen you. I've never did anything negative with you. I've never been in the same room with you. Not only wasn't I there, I wasn't even in New York.
But it wasn't until October 2024, when Big Joe sat down with Angela Yee on her Way Up show, that he dropped a story so wild it had the internet doing double takes. According to Big Joe, Talia Graves had slid into his DMs with an offer that sounded almost unreal. She allegedly told him that all he needed to do was write a statement against Diddy, similar to what other accusers had done, and she'd make sure that his name stayed out of the lawsuit. But then she allegedly name-dropped the one person in hip-hop you don't casually mention without a reason, Jay Prince.
Not only did she DM me, she tried to guide me through the DMs, if you read them.
Right.
She tried to explain to me, all I need you to do is write a statement like Barnes did, like other people did. I need you to write a statement and I'll keep you out. I said, keep me out of what? But then she got into the threats. Then she brought up, well, me and Mr. J. Prince will be down there.
She allegedly told Big Joe that both she and the Houston Kingpin would be coming down to see him personally. According to Big Joe, J. Prince was allegedly the puppet master pulling the strings behind Diddy's avalanche of accusers, claiming that this entire operation traced back to one humiliating night in 2014 when Diddy reportedly slapped Drake at the Live nightclub in Miami after a dispute over the song 0 to 100. According to Big Joe's version of events, Drake never got over that public disrespect. Sure, they made nice for the cameras afterward, but behind closed doors, the Sixth God was allegedly plotting revenge with J. Prince's help.
With this though, it was brought to my attention.
Whole time Drake behind all this.
Later on, that J. Prince, something I don't know about, had a beef with Puffy about slapping Drake, and Drake was calling J. Prince, going off of him for not taking up.
And I'm pretty sure he slapped him over Cassie. There was no other reason.
Against Puffy. And I'm like, that's none of my business, honestly. Yeah. After listening and people calling me, explaining to me that J. Prince's lawyer is the one who put them 100 people together, I think J. Prince is one of the main culprits behind slandering and trying to destroy Puff's character.
Now, these are just allegations floating online with zero concrete proof backing them up, and both J. Prince and Drake have kept their mouths shut tight. But if there's even a grain of truth to Big Joe's theory, it would represent the ultimate evolution of J. Prince's legendary power, using the entire federal court system as his personal weapon against his enemies. In any case, one thing remains clear. J. Prince's influence has never been about visibility, it's thrived in the background where real power moves in silence. However, in a new H-Town era, a different kind of voice has been rising that's loud, flamboyant, and impossible to ignore. I'm of course talking about Mr. Drip God himself, Sauce Walka. But whilst this new era is seemingly all about dripping, splashing, and styling,
you never heard drip or sauce in ESPN, you never heard drip or sauce on NFL, you never heard drip, sauce, or splash, or no football players or any figure of a person being called Sauce or your name Sauce. You've never heard these terms before I came out into the music industry. It never existed.
There's also a darker side, because it's not only the rappers who are louder and in your face, it's also the violence, which Sauce Walka would recently experience personally, as his artist was gunned down in a targeted shooting that almost claimed his life too.
But this had nothing to do with
him. We take a look at the dangerous life of Sauce Walka. Sauce Walka, real name Albert Walker Mondane Jr., was born in Houston on June 29, 1990. His father, Albert Rage Walker Sr., nowadays known as Papa Sauce, was pursuing a career as a pro wrestler in local productions in Texas.
We've got ourselves a nice crowd out here tonight. This is Al Rage Walker.
While Sauce Walker's mother was who fought a dark battle against crack and heroin addiction, exposing him from early to a life that no child should experience.
Yeah, my mama crackhead. My mama dead now. My mama crackhead in the street. That's how I got in this. My mama was selling that thing. My mama selling that butt. You hear me? Know what I'm saying?
You ugly, period.
Y'all live like me, man. You ain't never seen your mama suck some money. You can't even compare to the type of brain I got. I seen my mama crack work, boy.
As early as 6 years old.
Damn, that's crazy. Imagine being Sauce Walka and a kid and seeing that with your mama, bro. And that's how he turned out to be the P he is today, because that's crazy.
Already recorded his first song in a studio. By the time he was 14, he began posting videos on YouTube, this being the very same year that the platform was launched.
I recorded my first song in a recording studio with a microphone and headphones on my head with an engineer in 1996. I was 6 years old.
Sheesh. Wow. Damn.
This would be his first step into the world of hip-hop, but the streets were calling a young Walker just as loudly as the studio, and by the time he turned 15, the street life he was getting mixed up in would boil over when a rival street gang rolled up to his dad's place, firing over 30 bullets into the house. After this wild attack, Papa Sauce sat down his son and gave him a choice: either stay in the streets or start acting like the obedient son he raised. Sauce Walka chose the streets, where his gang, the 102 Piru Bloods, offered what his fractured family couldn't: a brotherhood and protection. The gang even stepping in when his mother got in trouble.
Showed me extra love for that, and one of the times that my mama had a situation, the Bloods in my neighborhood had handled the situation for me.
The 102 Pyrus are a notable homegrown blood set in Houston, who weren't allegedly established by California gangs or OGs coming to Texas, at least not directly. Instead, 102 Pyru members mainly came from the Houston clique Mash Mode, which mainly consisted of members.
And I was just about to say that. I was about to say, when he said Southern Walker niggas got pulled up and shot at Southern Walker, I was about to say, it must have been niggas that was beefing with Mash Mode, because Mash Mode was one of the popular cliques on the South Side back then. Like 103 and YSB is now. It used to be Mash Mode. And they used to be beef with niggas from other hoods, Mo City, West, all type of shit, you know.
Already repped Pyru, but wanted to make something of their own.
So was Mash Mode came before the Pyru?
Yeah. Okay. Now, not before the Pyru, but before the 102.
Yeah. And that's the main important thing.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, we wanted to separate ourselves. We wanted to have our own that only we can identify as, you know what I'm saying?
One of the founding members of Mash Mode would later recollect in an interview how Sauce Walker and his close partner, Sancho Saucy, would become part of the crew when they were only about 14 years old.
I started a clique back in the gang called Mash Mode, which in turn bred the likes of a Sauce Walker and Sancho Sauce. You know what I'm saying? Sancho. Forgive me, and please edit that. You know what I'm saying? Biggest Sancho and my brother, Sauce twins. But they was a part of my clique, you feel me? And together we was a family. They a little younger than me. I've been knowing them since they was like 13, 14 years old.
And as Sauce Walker himself has told in interviews, 102 Pyru would go on to become one of the largest sets of Pyrus in Houston.
I first started to take reps and see during that period of time, like when I was in high school, finna graduate. I was gangbanging real hard, Pyru. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, blood?
Yeah, Pyru blood. Mash Mode, my clique, we got legendary clique in Houston, legendary blood set. One of the biggest original blood sets from Houston, 102 Pyru, 102 South Park Pyru, South Park Pyru, however you want to say it, Candy Cane Gang.
But while Walker was getting pulled deeper into the streets, he would also maintain his love for poetry and music. And in 2007, he would adopt the alias A-Walk and join a local rap group called Most Heard, who would build a name for themselves locally, but still remain.
Most Heard, I ain't never heard of them niggas. Your name Most Heard, and I ain't never heard of you.
Figures in Houston's crowded rap scene. But then, in 2009, everything changed. On July the 22nd, 2009, at the annual Trey Day Festival, a community event honoring Houston's legendary rapper Trey the Truth's charitable work, the event at Texas Southern University was just wrapping up, and as the crowd of thousands began filing out at around 8:30 p.m., an altercation broke out, escalating to bottles flying. At some point, several shots were fired by several unknown suspects, resulting in the wounding of 8 people, some of them as young as 14 years old.
A community rally and concert on the campus of Texas Southern University in Houston ended in bloodshed Wednesday night following a drive-by shooting that police believe was gang-related. The school says 6 people were shot and have been treated for serious but non-life-threatening injuries. Witnesses tell police that one car drove by and opened fire on a parking lot where a popular Houston rapper was promoting community service and voter registration.
A few weeks after the incident, investigators identified Sauce
Community
Walker
service and voter registration is crazy.
as one of the several people who opened fire following the Trey Day concert. He would surrender himself to authorities days later and was charged with a serious...
Damn, Sauce Walker shot up Trey Day? And now I'm pretty sure he be performing that. That's crazy. That's a crazy 360 to make, bro. One day you shooting it up, next day you perform.
Of engaging in organized criminal activity. In total, 6 other men were eventually also charged in relation to that incident, and the legal aftermath would mark a turning point in Sauce Walker's life, as he ultimately pleaded guilty to deadly conduct for pulling his gun out and shooting at members of a rival gang at the event.
For 3 years probation, and I ended up violating the probation, and I had to do shock probation and go to YMAC, ISF. I had to go to all these different programs. Then I went to the penitentiary. Then
Walker would then be released into a halfway house, but he would end up running away. While on the run, he would meet a woman online from Orange County, California, and by using nothing but his natural swagger, he would convince this woman, who he'd never met in person, to wire $20,000 to his father's Chase account to fund his music dreams.
So long story.
Where is she at? Where is these type of women at? Who? God damn, 20 bands? Who want to sponsor my streaming career? I need 20 right now. Send it to me. Put it in my hand.
Girl off social media, and I ended up popping my shit and talking to her, and I'm posting pictures, and she was like, Houston is a place that everybody always is interested in on the internet want to come to. So long story short, I ended up, you know, just offering a business proposition. I was young. I wasn't even trying to get as much as I ended up getting. I wasn't even trying to get there, but I was just like on some, yeah, I'm trying to rap. I'm trying to be a rapper. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do this clothing line. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I just had a bunch of dreams at the time. I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. And she believed and sent me 20 bands to my daddy Chase account. That's how I started.
This wouldn't be his last hustle, and perhaps not first either involving women or money, but this time it would give him the seed capital he needed to start a new rap persona. And so, fresh out of prison with 20 bands in his account, Walka was ready to rebuild his life. However, he needed to rebrand and transform A-Walk the gangster into something more marketable. The transformation began with a chance encounter at a Houston hotel, where Walka and his friend Sancho were trying to impress a woman who kept bragging about her father's money and status. She would boast about having bread, to which Walka would counter with his usual charisma, saying how the bread was looking a little stale and needed some sauce.
Bread over there, you got, y'all see, that's cool, y'all having money, baby, but one thing about a sandwich, though, what is the sandwich without the flavor, though? What about the mayo, though? What about the sauce, though? Because that bread over there looking a little stale, though, you know what I'm saying? They're like old money. That old money over there looking a little stale, though, baby. You ain't got no flavor on that sandwich over there, though. You ain't got no sauce over there. Yeah. I got some bread over there, but do it taste good? And when my twin look at me, Sancho look at me, but she was like
I swear to God, when niggas be talking that pimp shit, they just be off the head rambling. They don't know what the fuck. They just be saying whatever they think sound the flies and rhyme.
A light bulb came out the sky, bing, and she just loved it. Yeah. And then the whole conversation changed. She started laughing. Sauce? What you mean y'all got sauce?
This conversation would end up sparking the inspiration, and a new identity was born. A-Walk became Sauce Walka. Sancho became Sancho Saucy, and together they were the Sauce Twins.
The name's gonna be like, we the Sauce Twins. I'm Sauce, cause I see it Sauce.
That's you.
I'm Sauce. That's what I want my name to be. Man, I'm Sauce. I'm Sauce. And then boom, it just went from there. I took the Skywalker or the A-Walker off my name and became Sauce Walker. You know what I'm saying?
This wasn't just a name change. It was a complete philosophical shift. And while still acknowledging their street ties, they would focus on style, wordplay, and original slang to create something that would be unique in Houston and beyond.
Me and my twin, we just looked at all the shit that Houston was missing. And it was like, okay, when we come out, we know can't nobody say nothing about our past, can't nobody say about how we get money and what we do or what we've been through. So okay, boom, we got that to the back. But what Houston need, we don't got our own lingo no more. We don't talk like, so we gonna come out and talk like us. But we still gonna sound like Texas Houston, but we gonna say shit that only me and you say.
Is that hay right here? Is that hay? This nigga sitting on the porch with some hay? This shit is too damn country, man.
Make everybody else say what me and you say, you know what I'm saying? And that worked.
This would involve the use of terms like drip, which Walka has even claimed to have invented in the hip-hop context.
Was that, did you come up with that?
Yeah, man, I invented the splash, the drip, the sauce, all that.
That's you?
Yeah, that's me and my brother. Me and Sancho Saucy, me, the Sauce Twins. Me and my brother Sancho Saucy, and then my brother Saucy Man and Payday. But it started originally with the Sauce Twins.
Drip, together with other terms like splash and calling people twin, became ways for Walka and his crew to represent their brand, which was all about being loud and flamboyant.
Splash, look at that. Ooh, we in my motherfucking bundle, dripping. We ain't no motherfucking rappers, you hear me? Yeah.
But there was also substance behind this style, as Walka took his poetry background and applied it to his music, developing a storytelling ability that was almost cinematic in scope. And when he rapped about street life, it didn't sound generic, but rather it was vivid, specific, and often filled with unexpected emotional depth. In 2014, Walka would found the Source Factory, or TSF for short, a label which marked his transition from street figure to legitimate businessman, who would create a platform to amplify Houston voices and establish his entrepreneurial credentials. By 2015, the Source was spreading, and a collaboration track with Sosa Man and the Migos would eventually rack up over 3 million views on YouTube. The Source Twins and TSF were building momentum and moving from regional sensation towards national recognition. But their growing success would also bring some complications, because as Sauce Walka's profile rose, a regional conflict began brewing with Fort Worth artist Go Yayo. This beef ultimately crossing the line from rap rivalry to real-life violence.
Bet you can't get out your car and show it. Since you the motherfucking king of Fort Worth, you such a gangster, I bet you can't get out your own car in your own city and show it. That's what a real tough like me, y'all tough than you. You play with me in my city. They gonna touch me nowhere in the state of Texas. You ain't never touched me in the state of Texas. You been getting touched on. You wanna act like you ain't. Tell the truth, bro. You really get me out of my character. But you know what's up. Yeah. You know what happened. You know, bro. Hey, man, listen, man.
Despite popular misconception that their feud begun when Yayo started calling himself the King of Texas, the actual catalyst was allegedly far more street level and involved.
You see my videos and you obviously like the high-rise cribs.
Flipping a catchphrase from a deceased Houston figure named Kenny Lou, transforming Scoot Up into Push Up.
He bit on it, but that was already tension from a song that I made called Boom God Part 2. And I said something in a song called Push Up, Scoot Up. And that's where that pussy come from.
This seemingly minor lingo appropriation apparently violated an unwritten code, as Scoot Up Gang represented a real Houston street organization. Houston natives, including associates of Sauce Walka, would reach out to Yayo requesting.
See, Scoot Up, then you got Push Up, that's the YSB gang. That's what they was doing, the little dance, they was pushing up. So he know what he was doing.
Cease using the phrase, but Yayo, who was backed by his murder gang squad, would dismiss these warnings.
I've been saying push up. I've been saying push up. I got old song saying push up.
The situation would eventually escalate dramatically when Yayo, along with his homeboys, Murder Gang PB and Bran Bran, rolled into Houston, effectively announcing his presence in enemy territory on social media. Situation would soon turn deadly when attackers would open fire on their vehicle.
We just be in charge the whole time. Yeah, that shit happened. Even when the shots start firing, I'll be in charge with the nigga Yale. He was like, nigga, it's for real. I'm like, what the f? And then he was like, go, bitch, go.
So you were driving?
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
He was like, go, bitch, go. And I'm pressing the gas. I'm like, it won't. Get out.
Bran Bran would catch a bullet during the ambush and tragically lose his life due to the injuries, while Go Yayo would squarely blame Sauce Walka for the deadly setup, believing that he had deliberately lured them into danger with a phone call to get his location right before the shooting.
This the real reason why I don't like Sauce Walka. You know what I'm saying? When my little brother Brandon died, RIP, April 9th, 2020, I'm on the phone with Walka. They called me and said, where you at? I see you on the south side. Stay there. I'm finna meet you with the drink. You know what I'm saying? I said, I ain't on the south side. He said, where you at? I said, I'm on 45. Nigga, Sauce Walka.
Yet amid all the feuding, Walker's musical evolution was quietly earning respect from hip-hop's highest echelons, with Jay-Z naming Ghetto Gospel as one of his favourite songs of 2018 on Tidal. But unfortunately, as Sauce Walka's fame grew, so too did the controversy around him.
He is a bona fide rap sensation with millions of views for his music videos. But investigators say this group, known as the Sauce Factory, is a documented gang.
In 2018, things would go all the way left as the feds began targeting the TSF Collective, claiming that they were not a record label, but actually a documented gang that was known for criminal activity and were now being investigated for trafficking. The investigation would hit high gear after a disturbing Thanksgiving incident the previous year where an underage girl trapped in a North Houston motel made a desperate call for help, claiming she was being forced into at gunpoint.
This deputy testified the investigation started with a Thanksgiving call for help from an underage girl at this motel off the North Freeway.
And I know the person who she calling the police on. Like, that's how small Houston is. Like I said, I got a connection to all these. I play football with them. Free bro, man. He's been locked up for so long.
And she was also threatened by a handgun.
When authorities connected the dots, several people with alleged TSF ties were slapped with charges, leading to a full-scale raid on the house, serving as both Sauce Walka's residence and the TSF headquarters.
And Daniela, we've learned tonight from the FBI that more than 200 personnel, tactical teams from all across the state, came in and surrounded the homes of these 14 accused criminals, arresting them at 6 o'clock in the morning.
With his empire under the microscope, Sauce Walka would go into damage control mode, and facing local news cameras, he would completely reject any gang narrative.
Why do police label the Sauce Factory a gang?
Honestly, I don't know why I don't know if it's just probably a misunderstanding from the videos or something.
Ultimately, Walka himself managed to avoid charges, and in the meanwhile, his business empire would continue to expand in surprising directions. When COVID-19 locked down the world in 2020, traditional revenue streams dried up for most artists who relied on touring to bring home the big bucks. But Sauce Walka wasn't like most artists, and he would seemingly use his creative mind to bring his old skills learned in the streets into the new digital age, pivoting into what some may call digital pimping, but was officially known as OF management, and which, unlike the real deal, is in fact completely legal. By his own telling, this move would generate a fortune worth millions through management of multiple models' accounts.
It's true, you made 7 figures off OnlyFans?
Yeah, gross 8, made 7.
Wow.
Yeah, off of 4 years, but not just off of my account, off of owning multiple accounts.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, whether these eye-popping numbers actually check out or not, the digital pimping strategy showed Sauce Walker's uncanny ability to spot opportunities where others saw only obstacles.
It was suggested to me by some of the women that was in my life, and then me being a businessman, me understanding numbers, me being a visionary to see, oh, okay, wow, this is an opportunity to where we could turn photography and videos of beautiful women into real estate.
Sauce Walker would also continue
Nigga, like he invented OnlyFans. Nigga, you ain't invented OnlyFans. Nigga, you just got on there, nigga.
collaborating with big name artists like A$AP Rocky, Bun B, and Travis Scott. But while he had spent years trying to rid himself of the street gangster image, the streets would seemingly never fully release its grip. And on March the 22nd, 2025, things would go left once again, when he and a 27-year-old TSF artist, Say So P, real name Latorian Hunt, were involved in a shooting incident outside a hotel in Memphis. Sauce Walker would end up taking a bullet to the thigh and was hospitalized, but unfortunately, his friend wasn't so lucky, as Say So P would end up losing his life. Memphis police immediately stated that this was no random hit, claiming that Walker and his partner had been targeted. But things would soon get even wilder, because within days of the shooting, one of the alleged shooters, 21-year-old Jaden Dandridge, would turn up dead, but not back in Memphis, but in Houston, Walker's home turf, while a second suspect, 22-year-old Kevin Brown, would seemingly go on a run, facing charges of first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and weapons violations. Unsurprisingly, the timing and location of Dandridge's death raised eyebrows, and while TSF have not been linked to the slaying, Sauce Walker would post an interesting series of pictures of him flexing stacks of cash in front of an emergency care center, the post also including the song Hail Mary from Tupac, which is known for its themes of revenge and street justice. The post had fans reading between the lines and theorizing that the street code of eye for an eye seemed to have played out in real time. But whatever the truth may be, this was yet another example of Sauce Walker's existence in the dangerous no man's land that's familiar to many who have tried to go legit while keeping one foot in the streets. Sauce Walker is undoubtedly one of the most charismatic rappers to come out of Houston in recent years.
When Sauce Walker and the Sauce Twins came into the rap game, we completely changed the entire scape of the world with lingo.
Whilst also being an undeniably gifted businessman. But whether he'll outrun his past or become another cautionary tale about the Houston street's unforgiving nature remains to be seen. However, if everything does go right, Sauce Walker might just become the person to lift.
Alright, overall, this video was just crazy, man. God damn, it was crazy. I can say he was about 85% right about a lot of shit he said. He was all over the place. Traveler Ross, but he got to get more into detail. You could tell he really didn't have the details like he wanted to, like he do on the other stories. He just going off of other people's videos of like recent, recent-ish. But overall, I can't say nothing. Yeah, man. So the finals going on right now. I'm about to probably watch the finals. Little quick hour stream, react to the video. I'm gonna put this up on YouTube. So if you watch it on YouTube, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe for you get out here. If you watch it on Twitch, follow. I need some